During the prime of my youth in high school, I had a girlfriend with whom I chased dreams together. I genuinely wanted to cherish her. But I ended up betraying her feelings. After being apart for over a decade, we met again at a reunion. She looked down on me with cold eyes, but fate had us meet again on the same flight days later. My name is John. Today, I am going out. I've dressed up after a long time and setting my hair in a way I'm not used to. Tonight, there's a high school reunion, and since I wasn't scheduled for work, I was able to attend. As I entered the venue, old high school friends greeted me. The star player of our soccer team back in the day still looked as fresh as ever, and the nerdy friend, who used to get all excited talking about cartoons, had transformed into a model. Some had changed, others remained the same. With a sense of wonder, I enjoyed the time spent with old friends. Man, those were the days. To be honest, my heart was racing before coming here. Felt a bit awkward since I didn't graduate with everyone. What are you talking about? We all shared those high school years, didn't we? I just realized how blessed I am to have such friends. Back then, due to certain reasons, I couldn't attend the graduation ceremony. So, attending this reunion was special, but I also felt a bit out of place. However, the words of the friends in front of me were reassuring. And just when we started getting into old stories, a late-arriving woman caught almost everyone's attention. She quickly became the center of attention for both men and women. Her name is Catherine. She was the school beauty, popular among both boys and girls. She is as beautiful now as she was then, with the men waiting for a chance to talk and the women eagerly trying to strike a conversation. I was one of the many smitten by Catherine, but the moment our eyes met, she glared at me. Y'all hadn't made up yet. A friend, with a glass of booze in hand, glanced between Catherine and me. To begin with, we hadn't even met until now. I replied to my friend with a wry smile. The word makeup made me think back to those days, and a heavy weight settled on my chest. As the reunion was drawing to a close, the lively hall grew even more boisterous, thanks in part to the alcohol. I had been drinking non-alcoholic beverages, so I was watching my friends from a distance with a smile on my face as they happily made noise. It's been a while, John. Then, Catherine, holding a soft drink just like me, stepped out from the crowd and approached me. Long time no see, Catherine. We exchanged slightly awkward greetings, followed by a momentary silence. You know, John, I still can't get over the fact that you bailed on that important exam. You couldn't even face us at graduation, could you? Catherine spoke with cold eyes, as if she looked down on me. Although quite some time had passed since then, I was taken aback that she still held a grudge. It made me realize just how deeply I had disappointed her. Hey John, why did you back then? Can't we just let that go? We've both moved on to new paths. Please, just forget about it. I interrupted Catherine's attempt to bring up the past, forcefully ending the conversation. Seeing Catherine's discontented face, memories of our high school days rushed back. I had always dreamt of becoming a doctor. Catherine, too, dreamt of being a nurse. We both supported each other's aspirations in the medical field. Whenever I went to the library after school, she was always there. Soon enough, we began studying together at the library, often until sunset. Before we knew it, we grew fond of each other. In our senior year of high school, I confessed my feelings, and we began dating. We'll work together in the same hospital, you as a nurse and me as a doctor. That was our big goal, our promise. But I turned down the opportunity to take the entrance exam for a renowned medical school. When questioned why, I remained silent. That day, Catherine got angry at me, accusing me of breaking our promise to make our dream come true together. Rumors started that I backed out because I was too scared and unsure if I'd pass. Now, one might guess that these rumors were sparked by someone jealous of my relationship with Catherine, but Catherine believed those baseless rumors. Disappointed at me, she graduated high school and moved on. I keep thinking about that time. Catherine, lost in thought, began to speak with her eyes lowered, but her words were drowned out by a call from some girls, not from me this time. As Catherine reluctantly walked away from me, a part of me felt relieved. Now, I could tell her about the circumstances back then, but it wouldn't change the past. So there's no need to bring it up. I don't want to disturb her feelings now. When the gathering was about to conclude, knowing I had work the next day, I quietly told my friend and left early. Months after the reunion, I kept in touch with the friends I reconnected with and even went out for drinks once. During that time, I heard that Catherine was working as a nurse at a university hospital. One of my friends had spotted her when he went to the hospital due to feeling unwell. Another friend excitedly mentioned that he had spoken to Catherine during the reunion and found out she was single, having been so ever since our breakup. "John, you should give it another shot. You two were perfect together back in high school." My friend nudged me to consider getting back with her, but remembering Catherine's cold gaze during our meeting, I could only respond with a laugh, saying I'm not in her league anymore. Now, as I recollect those moments, I'm on a plane, heading to a conference in another state. Exhausted from my hectic schedule, I plan to sleep through the 1-hour flight and put on an eye mask. "Excuse me, I need to get through." I was seated on the aisle, and it seemed I was blocking someone trying to get to their seat. I removed my eye mask in response. "I'm so sorry." "Wait, Catherine." "Hut, John." As I was about to sit next to a woman, to my surprise, it turned out to be Catherine. I never thought I'd see her again. What a coincidence. When Catherine saw me, she froze as if time had stopped, giving me a startled look. Then the in-flight announcement began, and Catherine quickly took her seat. Perhaps both of us felt awkward because for the next 30 minutes after the plane took off, neither of us exchanged a word, and time just seemed to drag on. Despite my earlier fatigue, my eyes were now wide awake. We're heading to the same state. Maybe we're attending the same training seminar. Lost in such thoughts, I was jolted when a flight attendant, looking pale as a ghost, shouted out, "Is there a doctor on board?" The plane buzzed with concern, a scene many had only seen in movies or TV shows. "I'm a doctor, I'm coming." I immediately stood up and headed towards the flight attendant. Showing my medical license, I proved my identity as a physician. The flight attendant, looking relieved, led me to an elderly man who had collapsed. "I'm a nurse. Let me know how I can help." Soon after, Catherine rushed over. She had been staring at me with wide eyes, but the sight of the elderly man on the floor turned her expression to one of urgency. "Sir, can you hear me? Do you know where you are?" I tried to gauge the elderly man's consciousness, but his response was weak. "Do you have any pre-existing medical conditions?" I instructed Catherine to turn the man on his side and began asking the family nearby about his medical history. However, it turned out the relative was a son who had been estranged for years and was now traveling with his father. Regrettably, he didn't have full knowledge of his father's medical conditions. "John, here's his medication list." Acting quickly, Catherine had gotten permission from the family to search the man's belongings and found his medication list. Hoping the regular medications might give some clues, I quickly checked its contents. Then I found it, a prescription history for a certain medicine. It was primarily a blood sugar-lowering medication used for patients with type 2 diabetes. Judging by the medication and his symptoms, it looks like hypoglycemia. I figured that the elderly man may has been temporarily hypoglycemic. I asked a flight attendant for a drink containing sugar. Fortunately, the old man hadn't passed out, so with my help, Catherine poured orange juice into his mouth. After confirming he swallowed, we continued giving him more to drink slowly. Little by little, he drank it all, and after resting a bit, he started to regain consciousness. Judging there was no need for an emergency landing, I requested that an ambulance be on standby just in case, so he could be taken to the hospital immediately upon landing. "Thank you so much. You saved me." It was my first time handling something like this, so I might have made you uncomfortable. I'm grateful you trusted and followed my guidance. I didn't do any specialized medical treatment, and I don't think I did anything deserving of thanks, I replied. Still, she insisted on expressing her gratitude. The mutual thanking continued for a while, and Catherine, who was also showered with thanks, humbly responded, I didn't do much, creating a strange scene where everyone was bowing their heads in gratitude. Relieved that everything was okay, I planned to rest up and head straight to the hotel I had booked before my training session. John, do you have a moment? But that plan was interrupted when Catherine called out to me. We ended up at a cafe inside the airport. They had some local delicacies, and I was torn about what to order but settled on a regular cup of coffee. Amidst the heavy silence, Catherine was the first to speak. John, did you become a doctor? She looked happy but also a bit sad. I replied honestly, yes, that's right. It took a little longer than I expected, but I finally became the doctor I always dreamed of being. Hearing about my dream being fulfilled, Catherine looked shocked and was momentarily lost for words. But why did you decline the exam back then? She was trying to understand everything and looking like about to panic. I decided to tell Catherine why I had declined the entrance exam to a prestigious medical school back in high school. Catherine, the truth is, right after high school, I was hospitalized and treated for leukemia. Leukemia? Wait, what are you talking about? One day, as I was preparing for my college entrance exams, I felt extremely fatigued and had a fever, so I visited the hospital. I thought I just had the flu, but what the doctor told me was shocking. I had developed acute leukemia. Knowing I had to start treatment immediately, I gave up the college entrance exams. My grades were good and I had attended enough days, so it was certain I'd graduate. The side effects of the treatment were far more severe than I had expected, and I felt cursed by my misfortune. Lying in my hospital bed, images of my friends' graduation ceremonies and their bright, shiny new lives kept flashing in my mind. Because of that, envy towards my friends naturally welled up in me. I felt as if I was the only one suffering and began to cry. I truly started to loathe myself. This endless inner turmoil slowly consumed me. I have given up on my dreams, couldn't graduate with my friends, and even lost my beloved Catherine. The sense of loss was immense, to the point where I felt devoid of any will to fight the illness. Yet, what kept me going was my memories with Catherine. I had heard rumors that Catherine passed the nursing school exams. I was overjoyed, as if it were my own achievement. Catherine would now start a new life, surely with new friendships and opportunities. I projected my own hopes onto Catherine's glittering future. Although I felt envy and conflict about many things, for some reason, when it came to Catherine's bright future, I felt nothing but genuine happiness and support for her. Knowing about Catherine's success gave me the drive to continue my treatment. At times, I felt overwhelmed by the reality that I couldn't be by her side, but knowing that Catherine was pushing through kept me going. Just that fact alone gave me the strength to persevere. In the end, thinking about her helped me break free from my negative emotions. After a long stay at the hospital, the treatments worked, and I was able to return to my regular life. But this was several years after high school graduation. Except for my family and a few close teachers, no one knew about my illness. I didn't want to be a burden during such a crucial time for my friends and Catherine. That's why, even when rumors spread, I never denied them. At a reunion later, I finally revealed my condition to my friends. They cried, saying they were glad I recovered. Why didn't you tell me? You had to fight through this all alone. Tears streaming down her face, Catherine exclaimed this. The other customers at the cafe stared at us as if we were having an argument, but Catherine continued regardless. I threw a lot of harsh words at you, John, saying you were cowardly, or that you ran away. I'm sorry for saying things that hurt you, especially when I didn't know the full story. It's okay, Catherine. You didn't need to bear the burden of my illness, Catherine. I wanted you to just focus on achieving your dreams. I never expressed those feelings out loud, but I simply sat beside you and gently rubbed your back. You know, Catherine, looking back, I'm actually glad I got sick. She looked at me as if questioning what I was saying, but it was the truth. Yes, the diagnosis was shocking and it was tough, but meeting the hematologist who treated me made me realize deep down that I really wanted to become a doctor. That doctor had a huge impact on my life. He was always genuine, never hiding anything, and never treated me like just another patient. He'd always visit my hospital room with a cheerful tone, make some lighthearted jokes, have a laugh, and then leave. At first, I was emotionally shattered and found it hard to appreciate his attitude, but eventually, his brightness became my salvation, and I began to open up. That doctor once told me, "I too was seriously ill like you, John, so I kinda know what it feels like to be in a hospital room for long hours, how lonely and anxious it can get. But now that I'm better, I wish I had enjoyed those moments more. Being sick doesn't define you. I've never pitied my patients, but I do understand how they feel. I just want to be there to support them." Hearing this, I felt determined not to give up on my dream. After getting discharged, a few years passed, and I decided to take the med school entrance exams again. I told her that I managed to pass, and after a few more years of intense studying, I'm now a budding hematologist. So, everything's worked out, and you don't need to worry about anything, Catherine. I don't want her to apologize. Even if we can't be lovers like before, since we've met again, I hope we can still be good friends. I've always only had feelings for her. She's strong-willed and cheerful. Genuine, with a determined spirit that never gives up. I've always loved that about her. Even after we broke up, I never wanted to seem clingy, so I never voiced these feelings. But I still have feelings for you, John. However, Catherine said something I hadn't expected. I've only ever loved you, John. I dated someone else once, but I kept comparing him to you, and we broke up after just 2 days. She half-jokingly mentioned how absurd it seemed to bring up such things now. She felt deep regret for being so wrapped up in herself back then that she couldn't consider my situation. Our shared dream made it hard for her to understand why I gave up without discussing it with her. She felt angry, sad, and a profound sense of loss. Over time, that emotion turned into anger directed at me, and she apologized for taking it out on me. Hearing that, I realized that maybe not telling her about my illness was just my own selfishness. She suffered because I didn't share my situation with her. I was so happy to see you at the reunion after such a long time, but after seeing your attitude, I regretted it when I got home. I know it might sound out of the blue, but I still love you, John. I can't help it. Standing in front of a crying Catherine, I was shedding tears too. I'm sorry for hurting you with my ego, Catherine. If I had been honest back then, maybe we'd still be together. All I feel now is regret. Catherine shook her head in disagreement with my words. I'm sorry, Catherine. I've always loved you. Finally, I was able to express my true feelings. Hearing me say over and over how I still loved her, Catherine covered her face with her hands and broke down crying. After all the terrible things I said, you still love me. Of course, hating you would have been much harder for me. Caught up in our conversation, a sudden burst of applause surrounded us. We have completely forgotten that we were in a cafe inside the airport. Overwhelmed by embarrassment, Catherine and I both blushed and apologized for causing a scene. But instead of reprimands, we were showered with words of blessing and congratulations for a while. Once we were able to leave the airport, Catherine and I shared our feelings again and decided to start dating. Though I thought Catherine was here for the same conference, she had only come to meet her sister and headed in the opposite direction. I looked over at her as she turned and waved repeatedly, thinking how adorable she was, and started walking, hoping to make it to the workshop. Then we dated a lot, as if to make up for the time apart, and started living together at the 1-year mark of our relationship. I was working hard every day, putting even more effort into my job and studies, trying to become a hematologist, which had always been my goal. Catherine, too, was working hard, wanting to achieve more than she already had. Our friends, as if we had gone back in time, cheered and congratulated us warmly. For now, my leukemia hasn't recurred, and I'm living peaceful days. Knowing Catherine is waiting for me at home is the biggest motivation in my life. We're still settling down in our careers, but we're discussing getting married soon. Between us, there was one promise. It was that we'd always discuss things together no matter what. When we decided to move in together, Catherine told me that holding on to worries alone was off limits, and that's the promise we made. Whatever happens, we'll support each other. Being that kind of couple is our new goal and dream. John, I look forward to our life together. Me too, forever and always. Wait, is that a marriage proposal? Maybe. Oh, come on, I'll take that as a proposal. I happily accept. You're so pushy, Catherine, but I love that about you. I always want to be laughing by Catherine's side like this.